no job is too small for you, and you see that somebody left toilet paper on the ground, just pick it up. Never leave it for whoever's job it's supposed to be, because then you're seeing yourself as above it, and you're not serving anymore. You're protecting yourself. During COVID, they retired a little young. They still had more on the plate. They started talking about opening a coffee shop. Their names were never on plaque, on shirt, sponsored. I didn't know, but they were given. They just didn't tell anybody, and they gave freely. They knew that whatever God had blessed them with, it wasn't just to benefit them, for them to go sit on it and hoard it. Anytime leadership comes up, I think of George Washington.
At that point, leadership is no longer a theory or a skill, but it's an expression of who God has made you to be.
The building where the old Beck and Call Cafe used to be on the corner across from the courthouse in downtown Covington.
As a kid, you grew up watching, your grandfather, your dad, your mom build something from the ground up. So what was your perception watching your parents do that? Third generation business owner, really. What did you perceive what they were doing? So I'm really excited today about this episode of the Impactful Leader podcast, because I have my good friend and new friend, Harry Van Noy, with me. And we met maybe about a month ago. And the situation was I was frequenting my favorite coffee shop in the area where I go for most of my meetings and just to do work. And every time I would go in, Harry would be there. I didn't even know his name at first, but he would show so much attentiveness, not just to me, but everybody who would walk in. So one day I was like, man, I need to meet this guy. So I shook his hand and I'm like, man, let's grab coffee. And little did I know, when I sat down with him for coffee, I would be inspired because of his humility. And he's not going to say this. He's so humble. He won't say this. So I'm saying this about him. He doesn't say this about himself. But man, I was really just impressed by your humility and your ability to see people. Like what I experienced from you when I walk into the coffee shop is that, man, I felt valued. I felt seen, and I would just watch you. I'm just not trying to be weird. Like I'm always watching you, Harry. But I would see you, just apply that to everyone. And then once I sat down and heard your story, I was just blown away. So I'm excited to hear more about you in your journey. So just tell us in my audience a little bit about who you are, a little bit of your family background, and we'll take it from there.
Of course. So I'm Harry Van Noy. I work at Haven Coffee and Cocktails on the street. I'm the director of coffee strategy and culture for North Shore Specialty Coffee, which is the roastery associated with Haven. I do that. I've been born and raised in Covington. I went to North Lake Christian School. That's where I met my wife. We started dating senior year and got married in college at Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi, and moved back here once we had our first kid, and now we have two, and we live in Bush with our chickens. Raised here. I actually grew up in Bush. It's where my parents chose to raise us when they were sending us to North Lake. We had about 5 acres out there with chickens and donkeys. And so we're kind of restarting the cycle a little bit, which feels really good. When I was growing up, my parents had worked with my mom's dad to start a oil safety training company. At that time, it was called PEC Safety, run by Charlie Carr, my grandfather, and then Justin Van Noy and my uncle Wes Carr. And what they did is they helped integrate the training procedures and qualifications for different oil companies for contractors so that everybody had a basic training to go through. And so they built that company up from the ground. My dad always says when he started, he was looking through physical files, and by the end they had built an online database, which is what ended up selling when they built up the company. And so it sold, and my dad retired into youth ministry and was my youth pastor for my whole high school at North Shore Bible Church. And then, eventually I went off to college. He retired, but then my mom and him went a little stir crazy during COVID. They were retired a little young, and so felt like they still had more on the plate that God wanted them to do. And so they started talking about opening a coffee shop, or at least doing something for the community. And so they acquired the building where the old Beck and Call Cafe used to be on the corner across from the courthouse in downtown Covington, and partnered with my now boss, Trey Malone, who's been in coffee for about 10 years, because we knew his impact on the coffee community, as well as he was my first camp counselor at a summer camp in Mississippi. Wow. When he was 20, I was 9. So we've known him since then. So yes, they partner with him. He decides we should probably roast our own coffee, and he decides to hire me. And it's been great since then. So now we're back in another family business. It's been good.
So that's amazing. So as a kid, you grew up watching, your grandfather, your dad, your mom build something from the ground up. So what was your perception of watching your parents do that? What, as a third generation business owner, really, what did you perceive of what they were doing?
Honestly, I don't know how much I understood at the time. I knew that like the general scope of what they were doing. I knew that they worked super hard, and I knew that they treated people well. That was the key, is that everybody loved them. Like when we would walk, because I spent a lot of time at the office with my dad, especially, and my mom worked there for a long time too. But we spent a lot of time like after school there or through the summer, I guess. And every time we walked in, like everybody was very happy to see my family. And I think now that the business has moved on and they're kind of not involved anymore, people say like, man, we miss seeing the cars and the Van Noys around. So the impact was always there with how they treated their employees like a family. So that was big. And then it always sticks out in my brain when the BP oil spill happened. That was a busy year for my family. Obviously it also was, it was a lot of business at the time. And so my dad was working a lot of hours, but that was big because he helped train a lot of people for the cleanup. And so it was a big deal. And I remember him working extra hard and seeing him a little less during that time. But when we came out of it, just seeing how hard he worked and then how well he separated that from when he came home and was very, very present father and an inspiration too. So I guess I knew what they were doing, but it was also kind of like they did keep it separate until we were old enough. And then I just kind of asked a bunch of questions. So.
Yeah. So one thing I love about when I talk to you, you always celebrate your parents. Like you really do look up to your parents and the foundation they laid for you. So what were some of the values that you believe were just most important that they instilled in you at an early age that are impacting the way that you lead right now in both the business you're in, but also your family?
Yeah. First off, it would just be the model of the family I'm building with my wife now, getting married. They got married around the same age, around 20. Before we were even 21, they were the same. Met in college. We had met a little bit before them, but they taught me the importance of like, don't wait too long to get married. Like they always say they hate long engagements. So ours was a little longer than we wanted to, but it was shorter than theirs. But they were just like,
how long was it?
I think theirs was a little over a full year. I think my wife and I's was probably about 7 to 8 months, I believe.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Too long. Too long. There's no need to wait unless there's some. Well, we originally were going to do like a semester abroad or something like that. And so we put some time, and then COVID happened. We were like, we should have just gotten married. But yeah, that being said, just don't wait. Don't waste those years to build your life together and build it around each other. Because we had so much time, like our last college year, we got to just wake up, see each other, go to school, come back together. That's so valuable. It was wonderful thinking about where I was in the dorms by myself every night, wishing I was hanging out with her, just getting to enjoy being her friend. So that's the biggest thing I would say. Now raising my kids with discipline, lifestyle, living humbly, like out in the bush again, like just being in touch with nature. That my dad always instilled that. So yeah, I would say family model, love for God's creation would be like from my dad, my mom too, but my dad would take us to national parks and hiking, and it was very much like you could tell that's how he communed with his creator, was being out in nature, looking around. That's how God spoke to him. And so he really instilled that. And then financially and business-wise, just their approach being loose with the money that God had blessed them with. The money would come in obviously through the business, but the way it went out was obviously they were responsible and they saved, and they set my wife and I up for success as well. and gave us security, but they also gave a lot, and I didn't know that either. I found out later in life a lot of their giving was anonymous, so I'm not going to blow up their spot right now, but
this is exclusive.
This
giving is about to be exposed.
That's right. No, it's just I was blown away when I found out their names were never on plaques or on shirts or sponsored, and so I didn't know, but they were giving. They just didn't tell anybody, and they gave freely. They knew that whatever God had blessed them with, it wasn't just to benefit them, for them to go sit on it and hoard it. I think about my dad and I love The Hobbit with Tolkien, and you think about the dragon sitting on his hoards of gold, and he won't even let anybody come in the castle. He's sitting there blowing smoke through the doors. But yeah, just obviously, like, if the Lord has given you this, and I feel this in my own life now, as you said, 3 generations down, getting to benefit and love the blessing that my parents and grandparents worked really hard to make for me. Like, that was the intention.
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't do anything to get that. That, what did I do to deserve that? Nothing. They chose to give that to me. It's the same way I feel about my Creator. The way that Jesus chose me, I didn't do anything to do that. He chose me, and he loves me, and all I can say is thank you, and live to honor that selection, that choice, and the love that I've been given. So those are the values from my parents. Went a little off, but yeah, I would say obviously family, as well, God, family, and then how to live humbly and live in the blessing that God's given you.
Yeah, every parent listening right now is like, God, please help my kids have that perspective. Please help them to see that, because there's a couple of things that you just said. Number one, being that your parents modeled for you stewardship. And for my listeners, I know we have a diverse audience. Some are believers, some are not believers. Stewardship is a concept that we don't own anything. Everything belongs to God, and everything that is good is from God. And we are called to manage what he's giving us with wisdom. And a part of wisdom, and really just a part of us looking like Christ in our discipleship journey, is generosity. So you said your parents never really shared with you all the different things that they gave away, and how they blessed so many people and probably organizations. But tell me more about how you caught that, because it sounds like it in your personal life as well. So you're a recipient of, what God has blessed them with, you and your wife, your family. That's from Proverbs, such a wise proverb about a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But how did you step into this place of having this mindset and heart of stewardship?
I was thinking while you were talking, I think it stems from my initial love for nature. I was thinking about when I see a tree. Once we went to Sequoia National Park in California, and you see the biggest trees in the world, tallest trees in the world, and you think this tree was here, I mean, who knows how long? Or if you look at an oak tree in Covington, you're like, this tree was here when the Revolutionary War happened. Like, that's so far before me. It'll be most likely, unless we chop it down, it'll be here after us, or if it falls down. And so we are stewarded in that way. Like, when I bought my land in Bush, it's the trees on that property are now under my stewardship. This is my time with the house, my time with the barn. The house has been there a long time. Everything I am a steward of, and everyone before me there was a good steward of it, because now I get to enjoy it. But I also have the responsibility to steward it for the next step, the next level, I guess. So yeah, I would say that the same thing comes with your possessions. There's a responsibility to steward for those that for my children and their children, just like my parents did. And then, but it's modeled after also God's command not to hold on to anything, not to just do that. You can't just hoard it all, right, because it's also needs to fuel the kingdom, needs to serve the kingdom at work on earth in us. Is it also a proverb? I think it's the wise is the man who fills his quiver with many arrows.
Yeah.
But you also have to equip those arrows. Like, you gotta support them and send them so that they can have a kingdom impact, but not just, be equipped to go out there and do it and get married young and have kids and keep the cycle going.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. You're inspiring me to have more children. I started a little bit late, but there's still the opportunity for it. So when it comes to, the humility, so obviously your family has been blessed with abundance. Your family's legacy is even impacting my family's legacy. So my wife is actually an employee of the company that your parents exited from. So man, what a powerful legacy that is. So my question for you is, have you ever struggled with entitlement? Did you recognize the abundance that your family had when you were younger? And was there ever a time in your life where you battled entitlement?
Yes, obviously. I think that's constant. And I think that would be, that's pride sneaking up and telling you like, oh, you can just do whatever you want. You can spend this money, you can get that car or whatever it is. And I think getting married forced me to squash a lot of that, because luckily my wife is very discerning, and so she'll tell me if it's a dumb idea. Like if it's a bad thing to spend money on, I have to really fight to say like, I want to buy this, and I have to kind of have a presentation ready.
Thank God for discerning wives.
Hallelujah.
My wife is the same way.
Yes. It is you need that. It's a requirement for sure. I think there's always the temptation of entitlement. And I think when I was a kid, I think that's why my parents did such a good job separating the finances. Like we lived in Bush, we lived humbly. I had no idea what we had. And it's a privilege and a blessing to not have to be aware of that or know that we're struggling, whatever it is. I know now, talking to them, the decisions they made, whether it was when they sold their house in Madisonville and bought the house in Bush, I now know that paid off my dad's student loans and equipped them to send us to Northlake, which tuition is high, but it's a great school. And obviously I met my wife there. My mom graduated there in 95.
Yeah.
And so they made choices to live 20 minutes away in the sticks and have chickens, have to drive 20 minutes to go to the grocery store to drop the kids off at school. They made those sacrifices early to conserve and equip us. And so, I think I'm thankful that I encountered Christ at a young age as well, and grew up just soaked in these values. And so I am not the most humble. That's always like, if you come to talk about humility, it's like, I'm the most humble. Every day is a struggle. Obviously we're all trying to figure out how to do this with God's grace. But it means a lot for you to say what you've said about me. That's very kind. And I think it's remembering every day that to root yourself in God's commands and his love for you and his word. And so living according to that, following the prompting of the Holy Spirit within you, and trying your best to honor that and confess when you don't,
And I love how you bring everything back to your faith in your walk with Christ, your submission to Christ. And when I think about legacy, the buzzword nowadays is generational wealth. Everybody wants multi-generational wealth. And I don't view that as just being successful. That in itself is insufficient for success, because if you have even generational wealth, but yet your relationships are wrecked, your relationship with your children is wrecked, your marriage is wrecked, I wouldn't put you in the category of success. But what I hear from you is that the values that are serving you the best, the inheritance that's serving you the best. Yeah, thank God for the money. Thank God for the, I'm going to call it a hand up, help you, whether your parents help you buy a car or home, pay for your education. Mm-hmm. That's all beautiful. But it seems like what keeps you grounded is the revelation you have of Jesus. in the relationship with Jesus that they modeled for you. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's the most valuable thing they gave me.
Yeah. So what does that look like from staying in a place of humility standpoint? How does your walk with Jesus help you remain in a place of humility or even grow in humility? Like you said, none of us have arrived. And there's moments where pride and ego and entitlement can seep into all of our lives. But there's something to be said about a walk with Jesus that helps mitigate those things. So what does that look like personally for you? How do you invest in your walk with Christ, and how does that, sow into your humbleness and humility?
Well, I think it's, I kind of mentioned it before. I think it's the humility and the, throw your hands up. It's that there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you did do for God to love you. That's the honor. That's like, how can we not receive that humbly and say like, oh God, like why me? Like, thank you. Because his reasoning, he's sovereign, he's over all of it, he knows. And then you think about this God is bigger than the universe, and the universe is infinite, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So why does he care about a little speck on earth? He does. Hallelujah. And there's no choice I can make but to throw up my hands and say thank you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to then go on from that and not try to be humble.
Yes.
Try to, like, how do you then say like, yeah, God chose me because I did nothing? It's fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Because he chose you because he loves you. And that's got to be enough. So
yeah,
it is for me. So that's his will is enough to trust in and continue.
One of the most sobering Bible verses for me is Romans 5:8. I believe it's Romans 5:8. Somebody fact check me on that. But it says, while I was a sinner, Christ died for me. And as you said, when you break down that statement, when I was a sinner, what does it mean to be a sinner? I was an enemy to God. I was defined by sin. There was no goodness in me at all. In the world's eye, there was nothing worth salvaging. And death was a just response that I deserved, in separation from the Father. But Christ still chose to die for me. So that verse for me, whenever I start to feel entitled or prideful or my gratitude quotient is getting low, I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't deserve any of this. And the older members of my family, I remember in church when I was a kid, they used to always say, if God doesn't do anything else for me, he's already done enough. And I'm like, what a true statement. Like, if he doesn't do anything else, if my days, the next 60 years of my life are just riddled with suffering, what Christ did at the cross and in the resurrection is truly enough. So I want to go back to a point in your story. So when you and I met, you kind of shared the story of how you got into the coffee industry, and it was through the avenue of service. Do you remember that, how you told that?
How I got my job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So share that for our audience.
Yeah. And so when my parents and their partner, Trey Malone, when they were starting North Shore and Haven, I had a different job at the time. We had just had our first kid, and I was trying to figure out what next. I kind of had the feeling that this wasn't it for me. Then I see, my parents are doing this really cool idea that I wanted to be a part of. And it is cool. It's awesome. And their heart for the community, obviously you want to be a part of that and help build that impact. And so what I did is there was a weekend where before the building was done, we would pop up in a little tent right next door with a little folding table and a tablecloth and a big old stand-up tent. And we just serve iced coffees. And so I heard that the grass had grown up really high around this building. And so I know that they had asked somebody else to cut the grass and he couldn't get to it. And so one day I just decided, like, I just want to be a part of this. I want to help fuel this and see where it goes. And so I'll do what I can. I just went with a weed eater and just trimmed the building and got it cleaned up. And so at that point, that's about, and obviously I kind of voiced that, like I was interested in coffee. I like coffee. My wife and I met drinking coffee. And so I wanted to be a part of it. I went and cut the grass. And then basically what happened was they showed up to do the event. And my boss, Trey, was like, who cut the grass? And the guy that had been asked was like, I never got around to it. I think that was Harry. And so I think Trey says that's what showed me the ethic and initiative to go do it, even though I wasn't getting paid and I wasn't even an employee yet. But he saw that, and then he saw my love for brewing coffee and roasting coffee, and he took a chance on me and told my parents, I want to hire your son, not you.
Yeah.
And so I work for him. I don't work for my parents. So yeah, that was cool because he was looking out for me there as well. I wanted he was very intentional and still is about my relationship with my parents being protected. And because my parents went through it with my mom's dad, as you do, running a business and making decisions, and everybody has their own opinions. So they went through it, and by God's grace, we're all still very close, and everything's redeemed in this. And I get to spend a lot of time with my kids' great grandparents. But yeah, that was the start of it, and so I'm glad it came from an act of service that I just decided, yeah, I think it's on my heart to do this. And so, you try to make the best decisions you can, and sometimes they have a real instant impact.
Yeah. So as we talk about leadership, this is the Impactful Leader podcast. What I think about is how important serving is and how serving actually opens up doors. Mm-hmm. Like even, I know this is about you, but I'm going to bring my story into this as well. Even me sitting here having this interview with you and having conversations with leaders from all over the nation. Like when I first got in this position, I didn't have a degree or anything. There was nothing on paper to say that I had the right, to be and to do what I'm doing today. But if you had to ask me, well, what got you where you are today? I think it came down to this one thing: willing to see people, love people, and serve people. And I know that's three things, but it's all wrapped up in loving people,
one directive,
loving people, and it's serving people. And what I find is that when you're willing to do the things that no one else is willing to do, and that's what your story highlighted, there's some spiritual thing that happens where God entrusts you with greater. Like serving is an act of stewardship. And biblically, I would back that up with the parable of the talents. You've been faithful over the few things, I'll make you rule over much. And then the person who wants to be the greatest of all, what? Is the servant of all. Yeah. So we often talk about the kingdom of God on this podcast and how the kingdom of God is just contrary to the flow of the world. The world tell you in order to get ahead, you have to claw your way ahead. You have to push down the little people and step on the backs of those. But the kingdom way is, man, how low can you posture yourself to serve others?
I always think about, anytime leadership comes up, I think of George Washington. His model of leadership was based on that of a Roman centurion, which I meant to Google his name, but he's known for the empire would come to him and say, we have this battle, we have this situation, we need you. And he would come and he would say, as long as I can return to my farm and live here with my family and my estate. They would say, of course. So he would go win the battle, and then they'd be like, okay, now we want you to be our emperor. And the guy would say, no, I'm going back home. And so George Washington referenced him when Washington stepped down from the presidency, because he stepped up when he was needed. He did his service, what was needed of him. He served, but he didn't hold on to it. And even there's writings that King George in England thought he was an idiot. He was like, he could have been the most powerful man in the world at that time. He had just beat England, which was the superpower. He could have held on to that and become the new king of the world. And he didn't. He went back to to Mount Vernon. Incredible. And so that's anytime leadership comes up. And I think you echoed that sentiment. Absolutely. It's it's those that are seeking the control or maybe even the attention, and the Lord says they'll serve. Yeah. And then the other end is those that are called to step up and do it out of service and the responsibility that's been placed on them. And it's that's just the best picture. I love our
country. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I know you're listening to this now. As you can see, Harry is a lover of literature and history, and that's what your educational background is in, actually, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I love that analogy. And then an analogy that I love in the Bible that I've been studying from Genesis through Revelation is it's interesting to me how many times God has used shepherds to become places of leadership for people. And when you think about the lowliness of a shepherd, a shepherd, first of all, smell like sheep because they're with the sheep most of the time. And I've had opportunity to talk to those who actually have had generations of shepherds in their family. Like I went to Israel and heard stories. And what's interesting is that the sheep dictated their schedule. So it wasn't like just because someone scheduled a party, based on the condition of the sheep would determine whether or not they would even be able to attend. So they laid down their lives for the sheep, feeding them, guiding them, and protecting them. And I think that's such a beautiful example of leadership, because leadership is not just hierarchical. And that's what we have to watch, that the Washington scenario that you described echoes that it's not just about being in a position of authority, but it's all about how can I serve the people the best that are around me? How can I make this environment, this atmosphere, and even help them level up in their gifts, talents, and abilities, awareness? Just how can I make everything rise around me? So I want to ask you this about leadership, because leadership, the way that I'm seeing it in your life and the way that we really believe it should be expressed is not compartmentalized. Like a good leader is not a good leader in one area, to where, oh man, you're a great CEO, but again, you're not a good husband or not a present parent. So from an integrated perspective, what does leadership look like in your household when you think about your wife, your children?
I think it's understanding roles, but also echoing the sentiment that like no job is too small for you, or no job is not your responsibility. Like this is probably my biggest struggle is continuing to be alert and serve my wife with the babies. Because when I come home from work, I'm distracted or tired. And that's a big shortcoming of mine, and I'm working on that. But really trying to be present and be involved. And I think that's something new for this generation, is the fathers have been only more involved since they were in like world wars and stuff. And so trying to continue to learn how I can go above and beyond and uplift my wife. I would say that's my biggest struggle at home that I'm praying about and trying to find discernment and wisdom to live out. And I hope I'm doing a good job. You'll have to ask my wife.
Yeah. We have to have her on next time.
Yeah, that way I think y'all would get along. I think she'd have some good stuff to add.
Yeah.
But yeah, being a leader at home, it's also shielding her from a lot. And especially my kids, obviously, they're very young. But modeling what my parents did, kind of making home our safe haven. It's our escape from the world, and learning to enjoy my time there. Because I feel like when I first got out of college, I was still trying to have fun and enjoy like things that really made me happy with my friends, or whatever it might be, being out at night, or who knows, just ways I was spending my time. The Lord has done a work in me recently to really enjoy the nothing at home, which is actually not nothing. It's actually everything. It's just being home, reading the book, or reading a book to my kids, or feeding the chickens with my daughter, being present in that moment.
Yeah.
And always trying to stay off my phone, which is a big one too. I would say that's the biggest ways I've been called to step up and what I'm trying my best to live out right now.
Yeah. And you went back to it, serving. I love how you said you want to serve your wife, and how you serve your wife and your kids as being present. And I love that you framed it that way, because I think older generations, even within, the Christian faith, had, I believe, a misconception of what it means to be the leader of a family, or headship in a marriage. Again, it's not an authoritarian position. It's a posture of service. Like, how can I serve my wife in such a way that it would cultivate her and bring out the best that God has put in her? Like, I feel like my purpose of leadership in my family is to help be a guide to my wife and my children in their pursuit of Christ, to help them come to an understanding of their identity as sons and daughters of the living God, and to understand that there is actually an assignment that God has for them. There's going to be multiple assignments throughout their lives, and that's the win. And like you said, it is a sacrificial posture, because after a long day, because I'm still trying to figure this out. We have a 3-year-old now, but man, I will say that I think the first year was tough, because you're tired, and then life is but you're still trying to adjust to this new dynamic of life with a totally dependent human being. But what it teaches you is that, it kills selfishness. That's what the struggle is. Even our desires of what we want to experience when we get home can be an example of selfishness, because I want what I want to do, my expectations. But whenever we can pause and, of course, communicate, because I know we do have needs, and we do need to have inputs to be refreshed, to be able to serve, but to be able to put the needs of our family above our own.
I think that's absolutely, and the other half is stopping. My church is going through Hebrews, and the big theme is stop and remember. Like, stop and remember what the Lord did for you. Because he's speaking to the Hebrews, and so the writer is, whoever he was, he's speaking to the Hebrews and saying, stop, remember what the Lord did for Abraham, for Moses. Now go forth and remember in remembrance. And so I have to do the same for my wife. That's huge, because if I come home with that expectation, and I'm guilty of it all the time, I feel like it's like whack-a-mole. Like the selfishness raises up, and I think I'm doing all right, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, you didn't do anything to help me last night, and you worked all night. So yeah, and I have to bonk, squash selfishness, and it pops up over here. And so it's just, I'm not doing everything right. I wish I was, but I'm gonna keep trying. But she's doing wonderfully, and I couldn't do it without her. And so I gotta give praise there.
Yeah, I often tell people that life is not about perfection. It's about progress, and so even humility, when we talk about humility and humbleness, it has nothing to do with perfection. It doesn't mean that we hit the mark every time, but there is a posture of willing to say that, wait a minute, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this. And that's what keeps us moving forward.
Never harden your heart. It's a big one. Like, keep your heart soft. Be willing to pivot. Never get fixed on that expectation. Don't get so locked into how you've built up the situation in your mind that you can't.
Yes.
When God says, no, it's not that. You need to pivot to this. That you're not able to do that. Now you're adverse to it, to the path. So I think I agree with what you're saying. You got to keep your heart soft and willing to keep moving.
Absolutely.
And move in different directions sometimes.
And so back to the topic of integrated leadership. So that was the home. So what does leadership look like in the workplace? So you're leading in a company, you have ownership in the company. What does leadership look like for you in that space?
I think it's raising up people around you. I think it's finding the right people and serving them while you're training them, showing them a model of no job is too small. That's huge for training at Haven, and as well as hospitality training, how we value people. Obviously, for us as owners, it stems from our Christian faith of how Jesus called us to love everyone. The word haven is actually from the Psalms. It's a haven for those to be loved. And so that's big while we're training, while we're bringing somebody up. It's instilling those values, the same as we would our kids, so that when they're raised to their level, their responsibility, the role they've been placed in, their foundation is on the same values, whether or not they're, some people that walk, they aren't of the same faith, but they at least share our values of how to treat people. And so that's huge. That's like a prereq, I would say, of working at Haven. But it's important to continue to serve and be present, even if you don't necessarily have to. Like, I have a great assistant roaster that helps me, and a lot of people know him. He's wonderful. I have a great director of sales that is going out and seeing my clients that I roast for. I get to go along with him when it's needed, but being willing to do that as well. Like, there are some days where I could just stay home, I guess, but my responsibility is to be there and at least be present.
Yeah.
And so they see me working along with them. I think that's huge. And then, just being willing, everybody that walks through the door, like you kind of started this off with, it's seeing them for who they are, loving them for how, seeing them for who they are in God.
Yes.
It's not even our perspective. It's sharing Jesus's perspective of them, and being willing, like, if they drop a napkin, just go pick it up. Don't say like, oh, somebody will get that napkin. Or like my mom would always say in her hospitality training, like, if you go in the bathroom and use the bathroom and you see that somebody left toilet paper on the ground, just throw it away. Just pick it up and put it in the trash can. Or you see that the toilet paper is empty, get a new roll out and put the new roll on. Don't never leave it for whoever's job it's supposed to be, because then you're seeing yourself as above it, and you're not serving anymore. You're protecting yourself. And so if we all do that, it's pretty harmonious. Obviously, it has to be. Yes. So that's the basis for it all there, at least.
And I want to encourage everybody who's listening, who's a business owner, to lean into this. Some of us have gotten sloppy in our hospitality and our ability to serve people and make people feel valued. And I want to celebrate not just Harry, but all the leadership at Haven, because my experience there from a customer service standpoint, it's been flawless. I would say it's been like the Chick-fil-A of the coffee industry.
Yeah, that's a good compliment. Thank you for saying that. That is the purpose behind it all. So I know the crew's going to be happy to hear that. That's day one.
I'm telling you, just from the time that I walk in, like, I don't feel like I'm a burden to anybody. And I know people go through a lot, and the service industry is tough. However, when somebody chooses to have a good attitude, just to serve someone else, even though their day is not going well, even though their life is not going well in some areas, to me, that's one of the greatest markers of leadership. And what I appreciate about you, Harry, I think every leader should have a leadership consciousness, meaning that in every environment I go in, I'm thinking of how can I serve? So whether I'm at Haven or I'm here at Kingdom ROI or in a grocery store, there's something in my mind that is like, no, I'm walking with a posture of serving those around me wherever I go. And that, at that point, leadership is no longer a theory or a skill, but it's an expression of who God has made you to be a servant of others.
And the value of those others.
Yes.
And I think I see that when you walk around. I feel that. And it's an inspiration to me, too, to be better about not just as at work or at home am I acting like this, or at church, but in the grocery store, wherever I go, I can feel that you're at least trying your best to do that. And I see that, too. So I want to praise you for that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm glad the praise for Haven is wonderful, because that's the goal behind it all, from day 0, day -2 or whatever.
Yeah, and you can take this video and share it with all of them, man.
Perfect. Yeah, I will.
I definitely celebrate what's going on in Haven. And now I want to talk about a little bit about legacy. So I want to ask, number one, When did your parents start bringing you in on maybe the financial conversations and seeing the picture? Because I know there's a reality as our parents get older, and your great grandparents, right? No, your kids' great grandparents, your grandparents.
Yes.
Yes. So when were you invited into that?
When we were planning on getting engaged. When my wife and they obviously my parents knew my wife Catherine through high school and knew that we were legit, that it was really that God had put ourselves, we were made for each other, I believe. And so I think they saw our heart behind it and our intentionality. And so when it came time to, once I had to work and saved up for the ring. And then after that, it was I had to go pitch to her parents how I was going to make this work, coming out of college, starting my career. And she's the youngest of 5. And so it was much more, I'm the oldest of mine, so different worlds. So I was coming in like, who's this young guy? And I'm very thankful that Kat's parents took a chance on me and saw it as well. But my parents brought me in at that point, along with my wife, and showed me like, all right, here's what you're working with. This is what we have in the trust for you. This is what this money is for. It's for these big moments in life, and so that you're equipped to get married. When you have your first kid, there's hospital bills, obviously, there's car payments, there's whatever it is, down payments on a house. And so they gave that information to us then. Sometimes they still wouldn't tell us like full amounts. They would tell us like, what do you need in this moment to get this accomplished? It wasn't until very recently, I think, when we bought this last house that they finally told us how much is in there so that we could kind of plan ahead with how to wait until there was either more in there, or if there wasn't going to be more, how we can spread that and use it in key moments. So I think, key moments was huge because they helped with the honeymoon, or with our first house, or college payments. So they had a nice, I think it's called a 529, I believe, account, which paid for my school, and we were able to leverage that to get our rent for our apartment. So they were so helpful to be involved and tell us like, yeah, you could be using your money for this. And we try our best to respond with also asking, like, not just saying like, can I have this amount deposited, please? Saying like, hey, do you think it's wise for us to use this right now? And
yes,
so that way there's also kind of, we're also holding ourselves accountable with it, with the entitlement thing. I think we could go just say like, yeah, please give us this amount so we can get this new dirt bike or whatever it is. Like, I would want to.
And then your wife comes in and say, no,
you don't need a dirt bike. You're going to break your neck. Exactly. And so, they're giving there's checks and balances on both sides. That we would go to them for advice and honor them, so that when they give us what they saved up for them, for us, they also feel confident that it's being used in the right way. And they don't even have to like police what we're doing necessarily. And so, when we were, to answer your question, go way back, when we were preparing to get married, and then when we put our down payment on our house, they helped us do that. And we were actually able to leverage a larger down payment to match our monthly payment on our new house. But it was a huge upgrade, a peace of mind, being away and having our haven. And so that was, every step of the way, they would say, that's why we put this aside for you, is so that you could do this. Or if your kid gets hurt, needs surgery, like, you need that money needs to be there, because that's what it's for.
Yeah.
So those big life moments. And
it's so interesting. We work with a lot of families and have a lot of discussions about inheritance. And one of the things that comes up with families with multiple children is the topic of fairness. And honestly, this is a subject that we challenge and kind of push back on, because fairness doesn't consider the levels of wisdom that each child is walking in, so I don't think fairness is a great gauge of what we should do when it comes to living inheritance and inheritance. But what you mentioned was 2 words that stood out: honor and wisdom. Like, you posture yourself with your parents because you acknowledge that they carry wisdom that you don't have, experience that you don't have, and you say you honor them. And I believe, man, honor is the key that opens the door to opportunity and favor, even with our relationship with God. I don't believe that God shows favoritism, but for those who posture themselves to seek his wisdom and who love his precepts and his laws and his teachings, there's obviously a level of favor that they carry because of that posture of humility and honor.
If you think about fairness, you talk about the prodigal son, the parable, like the oldest brother didn't go off and party and spend all the inheritance, but the father still gave the youngest brother, yes, this is your inheritance, here it is. And he went and
squandered it,
lit it on fire. And so, but then the father accepts him back, and that's not fairness.
No.
At all. And the older brother, I think, even gets pretty mad about it.
Yes.
And I mean, I get that. I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that the father accepted him back and then still provided for him and welcomed him back into his home.
Yeah. So last question. So at 25 years old, what does legacy mean to you?
I think it's absolutely whatever you're able to do for the people around you and being the best steward of your time. To bring it back to stewardship, I think we're here for the blink of an eye in this grand scope of time. And God has a divine purpose for why we're alive and what we're supposed to do for his kingdom. And I think about the movie It's a Wonderful Life coming off of the holiday season. I think there's a plaque on the wall. It's the quote under when his father passes away, and it's right under his portrait on the wall. And it says, "We can only take to heaven that which we've given away." But obviously that's probably can be coined a couple different ways. But I think the value that you see in Jimmy Stewart's life in that movie is that he thinks it's worthless, that he hasn't gotten to do what he wanted to do with his life, but look at the people he was able to serve. And then obviously when you take him away, you see how the town fell apart and these people needed him. God had him there for a reason to love these people. So his legacy is the way he affected the people around him. The way he honored his dad's business and kept those people employed. And you could take every piece of, you could break it down all the way. It's a wonderful movie, but the sentiment is, I would say that's my view on legacy. I think we're here for a certain amount of time. Yes, I hope like my kids look back and say like, oh yeah, my dad or my grandfather was a great man. He helped. But it's really more about like, what can I do now? Because when I die, I'm going to go to heaven and I'm not going to care what's going on here. I think that Mike Tyson, somebody asked him about legacy and he was like, legacy, who cares? I'm going to be dead. And then he basically was saying, I actually loved
you. You had a mixture between Mike Tyson's accent and a mob boss.
Yeah,
kind of
sure. I didn't want to do the full lisp today. This morning. I think he turned in that interview. I think he was just like, I'm just going to love my kids.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's kind of, I feel the same. I'm going to do what I can to protect and love my immediate family, but then treat everyone else like family as well.
Yeah. Well, Harry, thank you so much for joining me on the show,
Thank you, man.
This has been a special podcast for me, and it's just been an honor getting to know you over this short couple of months.
I agree.
And I'm excited to continue the friendship.
Me too. Mutual. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Man, that was an amazing conversation with Harry. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said at the beginning, if you are enjoying the Impactful Leader podcast, I need you to do two things. Number one, recommend people that you feel would be a good fit for the show who live out this integrated way of leadership like we discussed on the episode. And number two, simply subscribe to this channel, like and share and comment. And I want to continue to keep bringing quality interviews just like this one to wherever you consume podcasts. So thank you for joining this episode, and we look forward to hearing from you.